Yes, hello everyone. Pleasure to see you all here today. So we'll just wait for a few more minutes and then we'll go on to the topic of our today's webinar. There are going to be several. Today this is going to be on Steam, and we're going to have a separate event on Steam and Discord as mutually complementary sources. So yes, as usual, there's a lot of familiar faces. Familiar names. And we have 80 people from all over the globe at this moment. Yes, hello, Prakash. Will we get a certificate of attendance after attending this session? I suppose it would be possible, but well, it would, but that's not something that is customary to us. Yes, Mexico, France, John, Jane, hello. Hello, Jose, hello, Lorenzo. Colombia and lunchtime in Brazil. Mr. Daniel Weber from Luxembourg, Sweden, Christina from Germany, hello, and Austria, another Austria, United Kingdom, 92 people at this moment. India, Dimitri from US, Moldova, Mauritius, and Florida, hello, Arkady. Yes, hello, Artem. And I think after the mark of 100 people, we can start with the presentation and the demonstration. Oh, Asmadi, yes, привет, привет. Portugal, Santa Barbara, California. And Susan from Canada has joined us as well. And Iran. So yes, great. 97 people. I suppose we can start. So for those of you who are new to our webinars, my name is Ivan. I am an OSINT analyst at Social Links, and we hold different kinds of events. Sometimes those are with industry experts, such as the one we've had recently with Mr. Larry Cameron, which was really informative. Sometimes this is based on us adding new features, categories of features, or exploring a different topic. Today, we'll be touching on utilizing Steam and conducting open source intelligence searches in that platform. Now, this was initially based on us having done some extensive R&D on Steam, Discord, and several marketplaces. We have added most of the functionality we have planned for Steam as of this moment. We will be adding Discord soon. And what was that based on initially? So I'll just share my presentation now. And yes, I suppose you can see it. We'll be exploring, well, not just violent extremism in the context of countering it with OSINT tools, but in general, the problem context of gaming platforms. So first of all, key facts about us. We're focused on providing software and solutions for data-driven investigations. The company was founded in 2015. Our current headquarters is in the United States. We also have offices in Netherlands and the Czech Republic. We have more than 60 employees at the moment. And what we do is empower investigators and security professionals with cutting-edge solutions for enhancing investigative processes. And among our customers, we do indeed have many customers from S&P 500 companies and law enforcement agencies from 50 plus countries worldwide. So that's some geographical data on the customers we work with. What we have is SL Professional, which is available for Maltego and I2. This is an all-in-one OSINT solution, not focused specifically on GeoInt or IMINT. It has a pretty strong emphasis on social media intelligence. We have a pretty good dark web functionality. We've added about a year ago some new sources for cryptocurrency blockchains. And now we're adding some niche platforms such as Steam and Discord as well. SL Private Platform is an on-premise solution fully integrated into the customer's infrastructure with additional capabilities and a different pricing range, of course. So the general context is the growth of the gaming industry as an economic phenomenon and as a social phenomenon. Here you can see the forecast of growth toward 2023 of the global players. There were by 2022 2.5 billion mobile players worldwide and 800 million console players and 1.3 from personal computers. And there's a 5.6% estimated increase from 2015 to 2023. Here you can see some infographics based on what our business intelligence unit has conducted as research. And what is Steam? It's said here that it's a video game supply service, which can be described as the single largest distribution site for PC games. And at the start of February 2021, the platform set a new record as 26.4 million users signed into the platform simultaneously, breaking its previous record of 25.4 million set only the month before. So there are currently 132 million monthly active players, 69 million daily active. The peak concurrent number is 27.4 million, 31.2 million new purchasers, 27% more spending in 2021 than in 2022, and 21% more playtime than in 2022. So just a stat overview here. What kind of illicit activities can be conducted on Steam? So yes, the context here is that whenever a new technology and a new technology that influences society in certain ways appears, it can be used as it is meant to be used initially, and it can be used for malicious activities as well. This is true for everything from secure browsing to cryptocurrencies specifically, and the blockchain technology in general, and for gaming platforms such as Steam. So it can be called a marketplace. It can be called a commercial phenomenon, but it's also a social phenomenon. So it does have a very strong social networking element to it as well. We can see money laundering. We can see attacks through Steam security gaps, malware spreading, social engineering, which is always a part of this, cyberbullying, and the same goes for Discord as well, a theft of accounts for sale or misuse, a multitude of scamming schemes, distribution of malicious software, which I've already mentioned, the platform being used as a means of communication between members of extremist groups. So there are platforms which always draw increased attention from law enforcement, obviously. This was, until recently at least, something less obvious. So it was used extensively, and the promotion of anti-state rhetoric, of course. What we can work with are the following artifacts. or selectors, as they call it in the Human Trafficking Intelligence Initiative. So usernames, phone numbers, emails, broad locations, images, friends, and mutual friends. Also groups, mutual games, items, password recovery pages, info, Steam IDs, and links to other platforms of presence. And that's in the context of Steam specifically. Those are the different investigative methods that can be applied. So target identification, digital footprint tracing, connection analysis, group structure identification, dark web analysis, and cryptocurrency blockchain analysis. For those of you who are not familiar with us and our solutions, those are the core sources that we have. Those are split into categories. So social media, messengers, dark web sources, corporate, different API integrations that we have, the different cryptocurrency blockchains that we cover, and of course, our inner database, which is queried by SLISE. So yes, now I believe we can go into demonstrating how it can be used, and the demonstration will be done on Maltego. The same can also be done on iTunes. Yes, there was a question just now from Mr. Dimitri Taylor. When are you going to be adding Telegram and WhatsApp? We already have WhatsApp, although there's not much that can be done from that. So we can identify the WhatsApp account from the phone number and then extract the photograph from the profile or the image if it's there, and then either apply facial recognition or reverse image searches, especially if we have the person's supposed name or username. I hope that answered your question. Now, to go into what we have for Steam. Again, for those of you who are not familiar, this is Maltego, one of the best currently available visualization platforms and graph-based analytical interfaces. The basic concepts are entities, links, and transforms. Entities are the objects from which we work. Links are obviously what connects them, and transforms are queries based on small scripts which query a specific source to get us more data and establish a connection between one piece of information and another piece of information. Oh, and Mr. Prakash Prasad has provided us with some very, very interesting data, and I'll just say that. And this looks like something which may be interesting, and we will come back to you personally on this after today's webinar. Thank you very much, Prakash. This is very valuable. Now, we'll start with a brief feature overview. So we'll just type in Steam. And here's what we can work with initially: Steam ID, alias, or URL, or a mutual entities object. Here we have two aliases: friendly plans, evil hacker. We identify the profiles, and then so what data has been provided? Those were well, if Prakash is okay, of course, with telling that, please type it in the chat. So here is what we can see: Steam profile ID 1, Steam profile ID 2. We open the transforms in the run view. And we'll start to get the mutual friends and mutual games. Yes, as you can see, the data provided is indeed quite interesting. So those are the mutual friends that those individuals have. And now we'll start to go from them specifically. what we can get is the details, which includes the games and groups, links, broad locations, and preferences. We will get the friends, the user games, geo, groups, inventory items, and links. Again, for those of you who are not familiar currently with either Maltego or SL Pro, as you can see, the links are generated automatically in the case of an identical output. So those are the Steam groups, and we do recognize the importance of that as an initial pivot point. So we'll be adding some additional methods to work from Steam groups as an entry. We can see the location Canada. We can see a Steam friend, which is shared mutually by those two accounts. And we can see Fort Worth, Texas, United States, and also a link to an account, Dr. John A. Zoidberg, on the Infosphere from 8-Bit Mime, which was identified from this alias. So those are the general principles of how it works. Now we will go further. And we can start pivoting from the onion space, so what's commonly known as the dark web, but it's just a part of it. There are also spaces like I2P and Freenet, and the dark web itself is not a term that I personally like, because there's not just illicit activity there are other things, so discussion platforms, including political ones. But of course, a very large percentage of it is criminal activity. So we've searched from several keywords with strict quote marks: Steam ID, Steam accounts, My Steam. We've searched for posts. We can also search for products. And this is what we can see, which is also part of a problem context we previously provided. From the products, we can then further go to the user and the shipping info, which we've already previously shown you on several webinars, including the ATII one. But again, just in case some of you are not familiar with it. And thank you for attending as well. Now, from those, we will try to look for posts that contain Steam links. So yes, we can see one. Here's my Steam, steamcommunity.com ID alpha core. And the source seems to be 8chan, and the user posts as anonymous in the source itself. So we'll just bookmark that. Steam link. Another Steam link. My Steam for anyone that cares under the alias Veteran Viking. Another direct Steam link. I do if you have Steam, another link. Found Brazil needs Steam profile. Now we'll just select the bookmarked entities. Bin them. And choose several of those URLs to work with them further. It's notable that all of those users post as anonymous on 8chan, but this is an identifier using which we can pivot to, well, what can be called the clear web. Now what we'll do is identify those entities. It gives us those Steam accounts by the links provided. So Adam Alec, Veteran Viking, Alpha Core, 690061, Zoranzor, and Mingo CK. We'll set the limit a bit higher and proceed to extract the data that we can get. You can see there's a lot of mutual games, some locations that may point to where those people reside, of course. Most of it is the United States at this moment. There's a number of links to YouTube from a Brazilian user. And those accounts seem to be less public and less active. The ones Adam Alec and 690061. Also, we can try to extract something from the property fields, such as their aliases, and then use other sources to pivot from them. So we'll just choose those one by one. And we can apply, for example, database searches. So what I'll use now is social media features and SLISE, standing for Identity Search Engine, which has given us some output from one of the aliases, Alpha Core. And we can make an extraction from that. And while this does seem to be a broad query, it is a method that can be used to pivot further into the presence of an individual. Also, we can apply custom Google searches. That would be media hosting communities and other social networks, social media blogs, which would include Tumblr and Reddit. And that's an example of how we can pivot from a source which positions itself as a source for anonymous communications. But if a person posts some bit of information that can lead us to their presence in more available or sources perceived as more publicly available, such as Steam or clear web social media platforms, then that's something that we can use. And also some more context. There's a lot of products here, such as Steam game keys, well, mostly Steam game keys, Steam cache guides, so a guide on doing scam business within that platform. A lot of Steam game keys, and that was just with a limit of 12. And we can see that this is shipped worldwide based on the shipping info that we have in the properties for those, and mostly from the United States. Will a private IP address be exposed in the process? Abraham is asking us. That's a good question. Sometimes we can get IP addresses, especially using database queries. So we'll try to look for SLIC get IP address now. I wouldn't say that that would be possible in 100% of instances. And those, it's not 100% likely that they're related to the individuals that we're posting. But we did get a number of IP addresses from those emails. There's a machine that we've made for specifically pivoting from IP addresses. A machine is another concept that we will touch later on, and we'll also build some for Steam and Discord, and I'll explain why after that. There is some very good functionality that Maltego has for working with network objects in general. And there's some network functionality on our side as well. So here we can see how the addresses are resolved to net blocks. And then we can choose the net blocks and resolve those to autonomous system numbers, for instance. And then those to the owning organizations. How is the IP linked to the email address? Adrian, so based on the query that I've made, that was SLIC get IP address. The main logical link there is that we have a large database, which is one of our features and one of our sources. And we have different entries there, so different lines, I suppose you could say. And the query is based on looking for whether that specific identifier is contained in one entry with another identifier. So for instance, there's a line that can contain email address, alias, IP address, social media ID 1, or maybe phone number 1. And based on that, that will return the corresponding information to the graph. Yes, so it's not based on us working with the mail exchange server or the service provider. That's based on a database query. Okay, so that's it for the onion space. Now, those are some accounts that is it possible to get information from website or domain hidden by Cloudflare? That's a whole other topic for another webinar or a series of webinars. Well, Maltego has some very good materials about it, and specifically Mr. Mario Rojas. It is possible, but not something, in some cases, as far as I'm aware of, but certainly not something that's done very easily. So yes, just to give you some context, returning to the main topic about those scam groups. I took it from the most obvious top level source, Reddit thread Steam scams. There are a number of accounts here that are reported repeatedly. And the main scheme is, this is some very basic social engineering. So usually they get in contact with an individual on Steam. They can pose themselves as Steam moderators or other senior community members. And they can ask for any kind of credentials and potentially vulnerable personal info and so on. And it's also quite customary for them to move the discussion to Discord. So there's a very big overlap of the audience on Steam and Discord, and a very big overlap in the whole problem context between Steam and Discord as well. So those are several of the accounts that we met the most when browsing those threads. And we'll try to see if there is any intersection between them through applying all of those search methods. So now we'll view this in a different way. Those are the entities which have the widest diversity of dissent among the network. So we can see an account named Genobi, and it does seem to be one of the most frequently reported ones. Another one named Asset. There are small notes here beneath the arrows. So which transform was used and which data is displayed. So for instance, Asset is a result of us applying the transform Steam get friends from several of those that we have in the graph. Those are the games and the groups which they are related to the most, and some locations here as well. So Poland, California, United States, Washington, United States seem to be the most frequently met one here. And some Steam communities such as Steamworks Development and Steam groups. So provided we have more or less relevant data in the beginning, this functionality can be used for social network analysis within a specific platform, including Steam. Now, this is what we have for scammers as an example. Now we will go into another one with extremist groups. That's another separate topic. So I will provide those links to the chat as well. Here we can see documents, research documents within the Homeland Security Digital Library. There was a whole series of academic research done by the Institute for Strategic Dialogue. And this is the first report, Gamers Who Hate, an Introduction to ISD's Gaming and Extremism series. There's some pretty interesting data here, and this also features Steam, Discord, DLive, and Twitch. And I won't go into too much detail here, but I'll just send the link to the chat, and there are the notes for reference here. So those of you who are more interested can study this yourself. It's quite curious. And there's also another one, the extreme right on Steam. And what we will pivot from now are several aliases which are more or less customary and more or less associated with that specific kind of political rhetoric. So I'll just send that to the chat as well for those of you who would be interested. Those are the number of aliases that we have: 1488, Adolf 1488, Adolf Hitler, Sieg Heil, White Pride, and other ones. So just the most commonly associated with those. And those are the accounts that we get as a result. We'll just delete them now and show you again how the search is made. Now we will select those profiles and also try to see if they are potentially connected in any way. And we will do the same with the second degree accounts. Yes, Sahib, hello. Great to see you. So what we're doing is exploring the capabilities that we have for a platform new to us, Steam, in the problem context of scam groups and extremist groups. And also previously, we shared a method of how we can pivot into Steam from the dark web forums that we have available. And what we focused on was 8chan. Now, what we can see on this graph is a result of first pivoting from individual usernames and then doing a second degree enrichment on their friends. So here are the games, communities, individuals, and locations which are the most interconnected within the context of this enrichment. So there's a lot of Germany. There is something called the teamwork movement. There are a number of Steam groups and communities which have more connections than other ones. Now, an example of a Steam-based extremist rhetoric was Mr. Ross Farka, who was identified, investigated, and convicted by the American authorities several years ago. So this is a document of the United States District Court for the Northern District of California. This is a report of a special agent of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We'll just apply some keyword searches here. Steam. So as you can see, the authority learned that a chat room member on Steam, an online video game website, posted the following statement. You can see the statement of them owning an assault rifle here and wanting, well, expressing the wish and intent to potentially do something with it further. The online name was Adolf Hitler 6 million. The tagline was Brenton Tarrant is a hero. Brenton Tarrant was an individual responsible for one of the mass shootings. And also New Zealand flagged the words New Zealand. Under the tagline, Farka wrote, I have a fully semi-automatic assault weapon, AR-15, want to see a mass shooting with a body count of over 30 subhumans. So an investigation was commenced and the person was apprehended and then convicted relatively recently. Here's some context about them, also having mental health issues. And of course, the account was already wiped, but it is possible to find some connections. So an example of pivoting from individual names and identifiers. Yes, Sahib, I believe we've just answered your question about what we're currently doing. So if we pivot from a name, SLIC is just the shortest way here. Yes, we can also search for Steam profiles by name, but it's more effective to search from an alias. This is what we get, Concord, and the email of an individual, Alan Farka. Now, just to restore the picture, we will make searches in the sources we have available. Yes, Sahib, just to repeat again, we are exploring the capabilities that we have for Steam in the context of far-right extremism and online scam. So we can see in the properties for Ross Farka, a string containing the name Ross Farka, Concord, California, class Modbus order, and an email alanfarka@gmail.com, which may be his relative. And they seem to be quite similar visually, all from the photographs that I've seen. Now, this is also an overview of what we can do with the basic functionality that we have for social media. So extract the general data from LinkedIn and search for their presence on other platforms using facial recognition. Dorinda Farka is another relative, his mother. this all points us to Concord, California, United States. Flatiron School and Northgate High School are both very close to the location where the individual was apprehended and where he resided. Also, we briefly mentioned the concepts of machines within Maltego. So that's a new topic that we've recently started exploring. And we have built several ones. It's quite easy to do for basic identifiers such as IP addresses, which you've been asking about, phone numbers, email addresses, and Facebook, which we'll show now. And once we have implemented functionality for Discord, we will build a machine that will cover an iterational search within Steam, Discord, and additional social media platforms. So as you can see, all of those searches are done very quickly. This can be analyzed in a more or less comprehensive way due to the interface being graph-based. And a solution such as this, with all of those sources and features plugged in, could be quite helpful to law enforcement investigators specifically, but also cybersecurity people as well, because many cyber criminals are also present in the Steam as a social platform. Do I know why Maltego is not working on a Mac M1? Well, the potential issue could be I have a Mac M1 as well, so the machine I'm showing this from now. Sometimes when people install Maltego and try to start using it, they also need to install the Java developer kit. Can we implement an identifier of static and dynamic IPs? Well, it won't show you if an IP address is static or dynamic. So that's not something that we have implemented into our functionality yet. It may be otherwise with the Maltego team. Are there metaverse-based games on dark web? On dark web, not that I'm aware of, although that would be quite an interesting topic. And Prakash has mentioned we will get back to you quite soon with potential results from the interesting data that you provided. Is there a possibility of them being associated with a real life crime? Well, in general, there is always a possibility because there is always crime, there's always illicit activity in any kind of human society. And Steam is an example of a communication platform and, well, a specific section or subsection of human society. So everything that happens between humans as a result of interactions happens on virtual platforms, be those general social media platforms such as Facebook and Instagram, or specialized ones such as Steam and Discord. So there is, of course, a possibility of people being active on those, including the people that we've shown you in the files regarding extremism and scams being associated with real life crime. So the individual, the data on the relatives of which we've been gathering in this file was obviously having intents of committing some pretty serious real life crimes. And there are whole networks of those, some of them very active, according to the research, the links to which we've provided you with, that are active on Steam. And this includes using Steam as a recruitment platform. Yes, the recording will be available. Now, that would be all with the demonstration of the capabilities from my side. I think we can have a brief pause, so my colleague George will just launch it now, and There's a raised hand. There's a raised hand. Yes, Sahib will already answer your question. So yes, the questions are, what do you think of the webinar, whether it was useful or okay, or Matt didn't learn anything new? What type of organization do you work at? Law enforcement agency, PI, cybersec, NGO, or other kinds? Would you be interested in a more tailored demo to your specific use case and us potentially implementing the solution? How SL Professional can help you in your work? And does your company have a dedicated budget for purchasing OSINT solutions this year? So yes, please vote on that. Any privacy settings in Steam somehow influencing the hits in Maltego? Philip, to answer your question, yes, in the same way as we won't be able to extract much data directly from, for example, Facebook profile, if it's closed, if it's private. The same would be applicable to Steam as well, but that doesn't mean that we can't extract the data from what we have from the account already, because usually the least what you have is a Steam alias, the username, and the profile picture. So you can make searches based on that using the social links database, reverse image searching, and querying from the alias to other sources which we have available, which include not only, the most widely used social media platforms, but also ones such as GitHub and Gravatar. So yes, there would be limitations if the account is private, but there would still be ways to find more data with our solution. So now, yes, great. Hope that was helpful. How to pivot from Steam into corporate for due diligence? Well, one of the possible ways could be, well, it actually really depends on what you're pivoting from initially. If you're pivoting from an alias, then it would make sense to look for the presence of accounts under that alias on more mainstream social media platforms. And then based on the data that you identify from those, see what organizations they are connected with, what individuals they are connected with, and if there are potentially interesting links between groups of individuals and organizations. I thought we were going to show how to make machines do Q&A after. So Dimitri, yes, machines are a very, very interesting topic, and I'll just send you a link to the Maltego, to documentation on the Maltego scripting language. The document was made in 2012 by Mr. Royal of Temming, but not much has changed in the whole concept of machines since then. So it describes the syntax and principles of work. It's quite easy. It can look visually like a developer's environment, but it's more of a constructor, of course. So you just choose the input from which you would like to launch the machine. Yes. Will we get any discount on Maltego licenses? That's something that you can ask the Maltego team, I suppose. So yes, Dimitri, to continue answering your question, we're going to make a machine for gaming platforms, but after we have added Discord as a source, because the concept of a machine is a sequential iterational launch of methods of queries in a specific logical sequence, with further filtering and resolving properties. So it would make sense for us to have the whole concepts, the whole complex of sources with overlapping audience and overlapping problem context, and then build a machine based on that. Yes, Mr. Sahib Saleh is asking us a question. What is open source intelligence and the potential of the gaming platforms? Open source intelligence is a set of methods. Well, it could be called a set of methodologies or even a mindset for working with publicly accessible information. The definitions of publicly accessible, of course, can be different. And that it can be split into doing OSINT manually and doing OSINT with industrial solutions such as ours, or mixing those. So there's a lot of articles. It's an awesome thing. And if you're not familiar with it yet, we highly suggest that you familiarize yourself. And of course, yes, everybody who has a specific use case focused on gaming platforms, we'll be very glad to discuss this with you individually. So in case there aren't any more questions at the time, thank you very much for attending, and we will prepare some more materials once we have finalized Discord as a platform, as a source we have available. Thank you very much. A pleasure as always.